good morning. So, today I have an innovative and impactful global leader who has experienced on a success track with transforming traditional organizations into high performing and digital organizations. He's worked with a lot of companies and moved them towards success. So, if you're into actually moving businesses towards success and making them highly innovative, you might want to tune in and turn up the volume and listen to our guest today, which is Ken. Hi, Ken. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Menal. Thank you. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for joining us, Ken. So, can you tell us about your experience, where you're currently working, and what your role is at the company?
Sure. First of all, I'm really super excited to be here. Thank you for the invite. Right now, I'm actually working with MotiveWorks. We're a cloud strategy and migration company. My focus is client engagement, digital business advisory services. Before this, I had my own independent practice, and again, I was doing advisory and consulting around digital innovation, as well as business transformation. But my real passion are really four things. One is strategy, then leadership, innovation, and culture. And I'm based in Sarasota, Florida now, but before this, I was in New York City. I worked with Accenture, I worked with Gartner, but originally from New York City.
Okay. And how was the transition like working with your own business and then moving and working with a company that wasn't entirely under you? How was the transition? How did you make sure that you included four of your passions in that company when you were working with a company that wasn't exactly yours?
Well, I mean, it's a transition because when recruiters reach out to me, they're like, "You have your own business, but why would you want to go back, and join the market?" And actually, after 10 years, I have to say that, it's been a really interesting journey. But to be honest with you, don't say this to anyone, but being a solopreneur is not easy. I have to say I have a lot of flexibility. I can pick my projects, but at the same time, you know what I really miss is the people aspect. I really miss the camaraderie. I miss the teamwork. After all, I guess at the end of the day, we're social animals.
That's very true. That's very true. I think the human aspect of connection, specifically, I think the COVID situation and everything, not being able to see people and everything, made us realize how lucky we are to actually have people around us and surrounded, but like around them is something that's very important. So thank you for sharing that. And I completely understand how and why you would actually be a part of a business. I mean, yes, solo entrepreneurship would have its own perks, but I think it's very important to be surrounded by people that you can work with, collaborate with, and come up with innovative and excellent ideas, which is something that can make us look forward to in the next day. So thank you for sharing that, Ken. So Ken, what exactly is your role within the company that you're currently working with? Is your company currently hiring?
We're always hiring. We're actually hiring both in our onshore team in India, in Pune, and we're hiring in the States as well. It seems that, it's really a job seeker market at this point. I'm sure you've read everywhere that, there's quite a shortage of workers currently in the US.
I think so. And I think specifically when it comes to cloud, it's such a niche market, and finding the right talent for that specific skill is something that's so important. And you don't want to hire the wrong people and waste so much money because there's so much effort that goes into finding people, and then having a person join the company and then being like, oh, this isn't what I signed up for, is just like hard. So I can definitely see that. And like you mentioned that you're hiring onshore and you're hiring offshore. What are some challenges that you, for example, can face specifically when you're hiring globally?
Well, I mean, hiring globally, I think, and it's funny because one of my connections on LinkedIn reached out to me for the same advice. He has this 1, 2, 3, 4 requirements in terms of looking for the next gig, and I said to him, well, I think you're missing one critical component, and he goes like, what? I said, to me, the most critical component is really culture fit. So you can have the best location, the job, the pay, everything else, but these days, it really boils down to a culture fit. So that's a very important. Obviously, it's important, especially when you work with a very diverse team.
Okay, and when it comes to the cultural aspect, for example, how can you make sure that you're right fit for the organization before even applying for that? Like, okay, I understand that I can't really come. I mean, I think it's known that you can't really know an organization until and unless you join the organization, interact with people. Yes, every organization has their own mission, their vision, and everything. But how do you make sure that you're a right fit for that organization?
Well, that's a good question, Minal. And really, of course, you have to do your homework, right? You have to do your research on the organization. And when you get the opportunity to actually do the interview, I have to remind some of my mentees, it's not a one-way interview. They're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them. So, again, to your point, you're absolutely right. There's no way of figuring out culture until you're actually embedded and part of the team. But you can get a semblance of it. So one of the questions you could ask is, how they ask you, tell me about yourself. Well, you can ask the company, tell me about your culture. How would you
Okay.
describe your culture?
That makes sense. I think, as in,
You,
like, a lot of candidates don't realize that it's a two-way street now, and a lot of candidates do have their situation in charge because a lot of companies are looking for the right talent. So I can definitely see why you would say something like that.
Absolutely. And again, there are more interesting follow-up questions, obviously towards the end. So, for example, around culture, would you describe it as collaborative? Would you describe it as more hierarchical? And one of the things that I usually ask is around culture, the best way is, how does anything get done around here?
Okay.
That is
And
culture.
I mean, that's true. That's very true. And what are some of the most amazing answers, as in, like, that the way you provided them or the way you heard when you were applying for jobs yourself?
Well, interestingly enough, I'm going to say something really controversial because a lot of these focus on content and media is how to interview well, right? But you'd be surprised how a lot of interviewers don't really know how to interview. I mean, I'm shocked, and I've actually gone through it even before I started my business. But I think it's really important to also train managers how to interview well, not just the candidates. I think the candidates have already enough content to learn, but I think the focus should also be on how to interview well. And really, again, most candidates would think that so let's start from the beginning. The goal of the resume is not to get the job, right? The goal of the resume is to get the interview. The goal of the interview is hopefully land a job, as long as there's a good fit between the two.
Okay. And how do you make sure that you find the right fit between the two? Like, how do you make sure that you get from one stage to the other stage?
Well, you're killing me, but here's the thing. Like anything, this is like the start of a relationship, right? So when you start a relationship, what do you usually do?
Usually, you want to
You
get to
go,
know the person better. You want to
that's
understand, develop
right,
an understanding. Yeah.
bingo. Yeah, you go on a date, right?
Yeah.
And so the first interview is the first date. You get past that, you get a second date. Then you get the second interview, and hopefully, I know it's not with the same person, but hopefully, the more, if your line of questioning, is really targeted and focused, you'll get a semblance of the culture and really the chemistry as you go along, and I think the most important, uh, 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 sort of challenge there is the whole idea of really building trust.
That's true. That's very true. Well, chemistry is always an important aspect when it comes to dating. So thank you so much for providing us with a unique perspective, Ken. I can definitely relate to that, and I can definitely see a lot of people relating to that because I think a lot of people don't understand how important it is to build connections with specifically because with the interviews because you're forming a deep bond that could be based on trust. So I can definitely see that. Well, Ken, thank you so much. Our time is up. We like to keep things short, but we definitely did learn a lot from you within these few minutes with you. If people do reach out to me with interest regarding your company specifically, I will definitely forward them to you. But I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Minal, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much. Okay,
All right.
bye.